It's 2:00. This is the Governance and Operations Committee meeting of Monday, June 13, 2022. Just a reminder to everyone that this webinar is being recorded and will be published on the city's YouTube site, and you will be able to view it from there at a very near future date. To start the meeting, I just want everyone to note that our new CAO CFO, Mr. Colin McClure, has joined us for his inaugural meeting. Chair Santori is ill today and unable to attend, so I am chairing in his absence. So welcome, Colin. We are so looking forward to having you join our team and working with you over the years. And I just wanted to open up the floor to you to say a few words if you wish.
Thank you, Mayor. Good to see Mayor and Council here. And I kind of had a few days in the office last week and just kind of overwhelmed with the kindness of staff and some of council that were able to welcome me, and whether that was through email. And I know that Councillor Ciccone, he reached out to me even when I first got the position and wished me well. And it's been great to talk with the mayor, and haven't yet had an opportunity, but want to speak with each of you. And I did see Councillor Gannafoni Robinson at the meeting on Friday with Selkirk, and I noticed that she's obviously a big Trail Smoke Eaters fan, because she had her own mask in particular for them. I don't know if it's custom made for her or not, but it's been a fantastic week, and I'm excited to be here. And when you come and attend an event that we did on Friday with Selkirk and our DKB, handing over that building and listening to the passionate and emotional speeches from students that were there, and the opportunity for education growing and having a nursing program here in Trail, it's again been very exciting. At the same time, on Friday, I had a big tour of your Memorial Center, plus a number of the other parks in the community, and rather overwhelmed with and impressed with how well they're taken care of. Something that just even seeing the beauty of how well kept the Memorial Center is, and then go into the guts of it and see the new system that you have, especially after the Fernie accident, to see how well clean, how safe it was, and the fact that also probably not maybe well known in the community, but using even some of the heat that happens from the transfer of the ammonia and the use of the ice plant is used to actually heat water in the memorial. And again, plans for something future on that. And so anyway, just again, one of those things that maybe the public doesn't know about, but that we are, a green location and working further towards it. And I look forward to seeing where we can go with that, but also with all of the assets you have just on the recreation side. The other thing that became very clear is that there's a big capital component that is coming down the pipeline. So as much as these assets are fantastic and well used by the community, there's going to be some dollars needed to be invested in time. And so we'll make sure that we're being the best stewards of the cash that we get from our residents and businesses, to make sure that carries on for the future. Anyway, and thank you for all of you for welcoming me, and look forward to working with you as well.
Thanks, Colin. With that, we will move on to item number 1 under Parks and Recreation. This is item 1.1, Recreation Fees Bylaw 2022-2023. As Ms. Davidson, are you going to speak to this?
I would love to, Mayor Payson. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you all. So you have a report in front of you dealing with the Recreation Fees and Charges bylaw. Many of you, this is not a new report coming your way. You tend to see it annually. There are a couple of changes this year that are being recommended and being put forth in front of you for consideration. So the fees and charges bylaw contains the fees related to facility contract usage, general admissions, memberships for facilities, equipment rental, and the TRP program. So you might recall that this bylaw does not contain fees related to programs and services like participating in a swim lesson or going to summer camp. This is the more broad general use of our facilities and services. Typically, this bylaw has, for many years, reflected whatever the cost of labor increase has been that's been governed by the collective agreement. So for a long time, that has been a 2% change increase, and we've held that 2% change even all throughout COVID. So you may remember that there was some concern back in the original COVID times when We talked about whether there should be an increase, and the concern was knowing that it's easier on people to sort of have these smaller incremental increases than a larger increase at one point was felt to be more palpable. So this is that same philosophy was being carried forward into this bylaw. The difference this year is all of the inflationary costs related to virtually everything that we are doing. So I spent some time chatting with the interim chief financial officer over the past few weeks, and it was a recommendation that we not go with 2% this year, and that we look at a 3% increase across the bylaw for the most part. So as I know many of you are aware, we're actively looking to recover recreation services, and the hope is that come fall, many of our services will look a lot more normal than really, and they're looking more normal today. We're just not quite back up to the full level of service that we have enjoyed pre-pandemic. And if that does occur, then our revenue should hit its budgeted targets for this year, and we should be able to kind of continue to assume that all of the way we've typically offered service would be able to remain going into the future. The schedules, there's 11 schedules within the bylaw for fees. There are a few fees that we're recommending remain unchanged. So I'll draw your attention to 4.4 in my report. So the ones I've recommended not changing would be fees related to public skating. And that's in large part due to the partnership agreement with the Murphy Family Foundation. Because as you'll recall, there are some free opportunities associated with that agreement. And so increasing our fees would obviously just felt counterintuitive. Fees associated with use of equipment that doesn't involve considerable staff labor, I've suggested we remain unchanged. And there's probably about a handful of those. It could be a projector or a screen or a podium or something like that, versus say a stage setup that requires considerable staff effort. There are some drop-in admissions, only I think 3 within the bylaw for the aquatic center that I've recommended remaining unchanged. And that's in large part to remain competitive with our surrounding communities, and in particular Castlegar and Nelson. And then the rental rates for the old library space, which is now obviously the Victoria View room, I've suggested leaving those unchanged as well. That space has not been, I'll say, been in the market officially as of yet. And so I think it's better to see what the market uptake for that space is over the coming year, and then look at what we need to do as far as fees and charges this time next year. And then lastly, the fee related to the resident card. So that's the card. So we have fees related to non-TRP rates all through the bylaw, but there is the option that if a family did decide that they wanted to buy into the resident program, they can do so for a fee of, in this past year, it was a $1,156, or I'm recommending a 3% increase to that fee as well, which would bring it to $1,190. I think we've only sold a few of those over the course of time. So when we jump into the financial considerations, maybe I'll draw your attention to 6.4. And I thought it might be helpful for you to be able to see what the difference between a 2% versus a 3% increase would be. So I took just a selection of fees that I thought may resonate with you. So for example, the adult drop-in at the aquatic center, which is currently $6.80. If we bump that up by 2%, it would bring us to $6.95. 3% would bring that in at $7. And then another one that I thought might be helpful is if we took, say, a larger cost point. So say the annual membership at the pool. So it's currently $589.35. 2% would bring that to $601.15, or 3% would bring that to $607. And so I thought that just might give you a bit of a flavor as to what the difference between those fee increases are. So as you know, all of our non-TRP rates are built into our revenue streams for the actual operating budget for the year. That has remained unchanged. And as per your council resolution back from several years ago now, all of the active TRP cards would roll over, and we would continue into all the auditing processes that we do to ensure integrity within that program. And maybe with that, I will throw it open for questions.
Okay, any questions from Tricia? Councillor Dobie, see your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Trish, for the presentation. And I don't really strongly disagree with anything you're saying, but I do have a couple of concerns, and I understand where you're coming from in your increases. So my first question would be, in the past, had we not spoken about lower income or a seniors reduction fee? Is that still applicable?
Councillor Dobie, are you referring to the leisure access program or a fee
Yes.
structure specific to seniors
Yes.
participating in services?
Yeah.
The leisure access program?
Yes.
Yeah, so that program takes a percentage of the fees approved in this bylaw, and those rates go in then at 50% for people who qualify for that program. So this bylaw doesn't impact
Right,
whether that program exists.
Okay, my other comment is going to the 3%. I know it's not a lot, but I keep in touch with Marilyn at the food bank. And I think the last attendance was up to 95, which is the largest attendance we have ever seen. And she's slowly been seeing more and more increases from low-income families that just can't make it on the income that they have. So I sort of feel that those are the people who could normally afford the lower recreation in this town are going to be the most affected. If they can't afford to make ends meet in food, it's going to be really tough for them. And of course, we know the biggest increase that the whole community in Canada is facing is the very high cost of gas at this time. So for those reasons, I would support the 2%, but I can't support the 3%. But I understand your reasoning totally, Trish.
I'm not sure if there was a question there that was directed to me, Councillor Dobie. My apologies if I missed it.
Yeah, no, the first part was a question, and then I just wanted to make my comments. Thanks, Trish.
Got it.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions, or did they want to make a motion on this?
I'll move approval.
Okay, Councillor Kashoni is moving approval as recommended. Is there someone to second that? Councillor Jones, thank you very much. Is there any other comments on this matter?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to it. I agree with Councillor Dobie about the percentage in terms of 3%. And it's going to impact those people who are poor. And we've got more and more poor every day in this particular community. I guess what my caution is that this will be for the next council, is that they're going to have to very, very carefully look at recreation. It's very much like the fire service in terms of the regional district, where we had to supplement it with additional money from outside of the taxes. I don't think it's sustainable over the next 4 to 5 years. Thank you.
Is there any other questions on this matter or comments? Seeing no hands up, all in favor of the motion? Against, if any? Councillor Dobie against, carried. Thank you. Item 1.2, door replacement projects, contract award. Tricia, are you speaking to this as well?
I am. Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. So this project is dealing with an RFP that was put out in April that was looking at door replacement in several different recreation amenities. So council, as part of your capital budget approval, provided funds for door replacement at the TALC, so the Trail Aquatic and Leisure Center, the Butler Park facility, as well as the Trail Memorial Center. So the RFP went out. Unfortunately, we didn't receive any interest in that particular RFP. And so we had to go about it in a different way. And we sought quotes directly from one of our local contractors, which was Corvus Construction. So Corvus ultimately did get us a quote for these services, and it ended up coming down to sort of components of the work that we were hoping to accomplish within this RFP. So the idea was to replace the glass doors that exit from the pool deck onto the sun deck, if you can envision that at the Trail Aquatic and Leisure Center, as well as 4 wood doors in the Butler Park grandstands, and the exit doors by the Smoke Eaters dressing room at the Trail Memorial Center. So that would be on the Victoria Street side, kind of in front of that, those little parking stalls that sort of used to be right by the mural. I hope that makes sense to everyone. So this particular quote came in at $63,300. It was felt that there should be consideration given to some of the other work done in the Trail Memorial Center under a separate contract. So this particular report is asking for approval to award the project for the door replacement in those various facilities in the amount of $63,300 plus taxes to Corvus Construction.
Okay, there is a motion that, or there's a recommendation on the floor. Does anyone have a question, or do they wish to make a motion on this matter?
Move approval.
Councillor Gashoni and second by Councillor Gadafoni Robinson. Is that a question, Councillor Jones? Go ahead.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Thanks, Trish, for the report. I guess as I'm reading this, I just have a little bit concerned because, I think it's just the way it's going now with construction and, getting contracts and holding on to those contracts for other construction issues, or what am I trying to say here? I guess I'm just a little bit concerned about how this affects the bylaw that we have, for purchasing, the purchasing bylaw that we have. So this came in at 66,000, and we actually went and looked for, got a quote from the community, right? Because nobody bid on it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering if we need to look at that purchasing policy, then have a look at it and change some of the wording in it or the direction in it, because I think we're going to see that more and more, where we're going to be depending on our local contractors to be providing the services. I just, and I'm only talking about this because I noticed at the regional district, there was a couple of bids that we put, RFPs that we put out as well, and they haven't come back with any bids or contractors interested. So now they're looking locally as well. And I'm just thinking that, maybe we should be looking ahead a little bit at the purchasing policy and maybe, have a changes in that policy. I mean, I trust the staff is going to do make the best choices for us. So I'm okay there, but I'm just wondering if we should actually have something on paper. And I also just wanted to say that I appreciated the comments that Michelle made at the end here, where we were talking about the additional costs can be funded from prior year surplus, and that we really need to be careful about what, programs and projects that we're going to be funding. And I really appreciated that. And I think it's something that council needs to be aware of as well. So I think that was it, but yeah.
Okay. So I think if there is any issue about a review of policy, that should be taken care of in a separate motion. And Ms. McIsaac, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that, but the comment about funded from prior year surplus is actually for item number 1.3, not 1.2. So Ms. McIsaac, did you want to weigh in on purchasing policy?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Your Worship. So the basic intent behind the purchasing policy is to ensure that we are seeking competitive bids. Unfortunately, at this time where there is an abundance of work for contractors and suppliers, we are seeing that we don't receive a response. So as long as we have done our best efforts to let the news be known that we have an opportunity for the award of a contract, then we can look to target or seek direct quotes from suppliers who we trust, local or otherwise. I think it's important in the door replacement project. I'm pretty confident that Mr. Baker had indicated that in fact Corvus was intending to bid, but didn't have their quoted prices in time of closing, and so hadn't submitted. Unless Mr. McClure has any suggestions around how to encourage more support of the quotations that we go out for bid, whether it be extending deadlines. I would say we're really at the mercy of the suppliers when we're putting forward our projects.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, the only comment that I would make is that we are bound by certain provincial trade thresholds where we have to put them out for bid. But certainly having a look at purchasing policy for best practices is a good idea anyway, and something that I would hope that in my time here, and I think there may be some other higher priorities, but that is certainly something that I think that council should look at, and I will put that on my kind of to-do list, regardless of where council is at with it. But yeah, I mean, again, the challenging thing too is kind of realizing that maybe there might be some capital that we have to put off for some time, which sometimes isn't popular. But if you've got priority items that you can get done and within budget, then we should. But I expect that we're going to see higher and higher amounts that are over what is budgeted, and that may just be a course of time. So patience and yes, and kind of hitting the absolutes. So yep.
Okay, Ms. McIsaac, can you just refresh my memory? Has this been moved and seconded? I just didn't write down the initials on my end.
It has, and
has?
for the benefit of Councillor Butler, who has returned to the meeting, just to let you know that a motion, we are just dealing with item 1.2 still, the contract award for door replacement projects, and a motion has been made and seconded that council award the contract for the door replacement at the various facilities to Corvus Construction in the amount of $63,300 plus the applicable taxes, fees, and charges as was recommended by staff.
Okay, does anyone else have any other questions or comments on this matter? Seeing none. All right, all in favor? Against, if any? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 1.3 is Trail Aquatic and Leisure Center filter tanks contract award. And Ms. Davidson, over to you.
Thank you. So yes, this project is dealing with the pool water filter tank repairs, and it's to apply an epoxy coating to those tanks. I know it's a part of the aquatic center that many of you probably don't wander into very often unless you've been on tour with me. So this is the big filter tanks in the back that hold all the water before it actually goes through the filter system and comes back into the pool. And the concrete within that space has shown signs of degradation. And what will happen is if it continues to degrade or if water is able to infiltrate the concrete, it will start to erode or rust out the rebar that would be within those concrete walls. So this is to apply an epoxy coating to prevent that from happening and to continue to add life, extended lifespan to that part of the asset of the facility. So this project went out for bid, and we received one application or proposal. So you had originally allocated $50,000 in capital funding for this work. Unfortunately, this project seemed to be following a bit of a trend, and it came in higher than anticipated. And unfortunately, we only had the one bid to review, and it is a bit of a specialized type of work. So the recommendation is to proceed with the work, assuming that we can increase the budget up to $66,000. And that would include the award to Coastal Corrosion Services in the amount of $60,200 plus all applicable fees, taxes, and charges, as well as provide a 10% contingency on the work, as this particular agency has suggested going forward on a time and materials basis. And that can come with some level of unknown or risk in the budget. So that's where the 10% comes from. So it would be a total of going from the $50,000 budget originally approved up to $66,000 to cover those two items.
Great. So does anyone have any questions or would like to make a motion on this? Councillor Dobie, did you put your hand up? I'm not sure. Yep. So are you making the motion or, and you're on mute? You're on mute still. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
wouldn't let me get out. Sorry. Yes, I made the motion.
Okay, and is there someone to second the motion? Councillor Butler,
Second.
thank you very much. Is there any comments or questions on this?
So
Councillor
Trish,
Kashuni, go ahead.
what you're looking at is a little bit over 20% then, on this particular bid increase.
Yes, I would say a little bit when we actually include the contingency on that. It would probably be roughly 20%, yes.
And you're sort of expecting, at least when I'm listening to you, you're sort of expecting most of this bidding to come in at least 10% higher. Is that what you're kind of thinking about?
Oh, no, not necessarily, Councillor Kashoni. I don't think I could make that broad stroke of a statement. I just know that there's been a couple of larger projects that, you know, that my department has been dealing with, that we've seen that be a bit of a trend. So I was maybe making a bit of a lighthearted comment and didn't mean it to be broader than it needed to be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and any other questions on this? No, and so do you think safe to assume that going forward with overages, we're going to be, as noted by Ms. McIsaac, Councillor Jones, and also Mr. McClure, that the overages might be taken out of existing projects versus always out of surplus, and that's going to be an evaluation that goes on throughout this fiscal year, depending on how the overages on capital projects are coming through. Ed nodding, great. Okay, so all in favor of the motion? Any against? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item.
I will bow out. Just wanted to not be rude
Thanks.
and not say goodbye.
Thanks, Tricia.
Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
General government and finance 2.1 is RDKB Green Bin Collection Program. And Ms. McIsaac, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the regional district, as council knows, will be initiating a green bin organics curbside collection program in 2023 for all of the residential properties in the McKelvey Creek watershed, waste shed. And in advance of that program's introduction, the regional district will need to purchase the curbside bins to be used by the householders, and have sent correspondence through Councillor Jones, who is the regional director, to the board, requesting input from Trail Council with respect to the bins to be purchased for distribution here. And included with the regional district's reporting, there's fairly detailed analysis of the various collection bins that could be utilized and the pros and cons of each. What the regional district is generally recommending is that the majority of bins to be purchased for distribution to residents be standard 80-liter critter-resistant bins that will be provided to the residents free of charge. However, recognizing that there are concerns around bear and other wildlife attractants, an allowance within the program has been made to provide for some bear-resistant bins. No collection bins are entirely bear-proof, but the bear-resistant bins have a higher level of certainty in being, I'll say, bear-safe. And with that, there within the program, purchase of 1,300 of these bins will be made by the regional district. 498 of them would be allocated for trail properties. Where the bear-proof or the bear-safe bins are purchased, there is an added cost for those bins. So right now, depending on where the regional district sources the bins, the critter-resistant bins are pricing at about $50 per unit, whereas the bear-resistant bins will be costing around $200 per unit. And what the regional district is proposing is that where homeowners want a bear-proof bin, they be allowed to purchase that through the regional district, paying the differential cost. So there would be a differential cost of approximately $150 if the bin pricing comes in where they're targeting, for householders who perhaps aren't able to store their containers in secured outdoor sheds or garages, or otherwise deal with the organics in between collection days. So there will be some choice to householders. As an option, though, municipalities could choose to decide that all properties be provided with the bear-resistant bins. That might be considered by some of our neighbors who will be provided the curbside collection. But because the organics collection is intended to be provided on a weekly basis, no different from our garbage collection presently, really, we're just looking at removing the organics from the garbage bins and placing them in and having them available for collection through the organics diversion on the same schedule. So it isn't felt necessary here in Trail for council to mandate that every property receive the bear-resistant bin. And if you were to do so, there would be an added financial cost to the city. So looking at the recommended approach that the regional district has provided, and it's outlined in their reporting, and I've summarized it very briefly in my staff report under section 4, it is being recommended that we support their approach for the initial bin allocation. And just to briefly summarize, that would be that the 80-liter critter-resistant bins be the standard bin that's distributed free of charge. Bear-resistant bins be allocated to each area based on the percentage of household units, in which case Trail will receive an allocation of 498 units. Homeowners be allowed to request an upgrade to bear-resistant bins, with the homeowner being responsible to pay the differential cost, estimated at $150. And that the bear-resistant bins be distributed on a first-come, first-served basis for a period of time. And the regional district suggests somewhere from 60 to 90 days, after which any excess bins would then be pooled and available for all of the areas for householders to purchase any replacement bins or to upgrade, say, from the standard bin to a bear-proof bin through time. And so that is what is being recommended, that council endorse the initial bin allocation for the McKelvey Creek Waste Shed Curbside Collection Green Bin Project as being recommended by the regional district staff.
Perfect. Is anyone willing to make that recommendation, or do we have comments or questions on this matter? Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Mayor Payson. I did just want to make a quick comment. I'm not going to repeat everything that Michelle has said because she made it pretty clear, but I just wanted everybody to know that there's an actual bear awareness program that is going to be also delivered, talking about how to store your garbage and, you know, making sure that people understand that it's to go out on the day of the garbage pickup. And it's a pretty good program that they have prepared. I also wanted to say there's a little bit of a sense of urgency here because we just need to know the decision at the regional district about this program before July, or I believe it's July 3rd or something, so that they can go ahead with the contract for the bear bins because they're concerned about keeping the price at it that, you know, it is right now. So a lot of work done on it. I hope council has had a chance to read the report that was in here. I think the bins that the regional district had chosen are the best ones to go with right now. But of course, as Michelle explained, with the areas that have the high bear incidents, they're probably going to want to have a look at the bigger bins that are more appropriate. So. My recommend, and yeah, I guess I spoke, so I won't move the recommendation.
No, you can move it if you
Okay.
wish. You
Sure.
want to move the
I'll move it, yeah.
recommendation? Okay.
Yeah.
Is there
Second,
someone
Robert.
to second that? Counselor
Second,
Kashoni?
Robert.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments on this matter? Counselor Kashoni first and then
Well, I'd
Counselor
like
Dobie
to-
second.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on it. One of the reasons is it's been a long time in going. The committees have done a tremendous amount of work and the staff have done a tremendous amount of work on this particular thing. And we did raise the $700,000. And if you read the report, you'll see that the additional money is going to be covered. So the whole $1 million plus is actually going to be not at a cost, at zero cost to the city of Trail. And that's very important to note that. The reason why they had the actual extra $387,000 is available, and just to explain, because it happened way before Colleen took over the position, is that we held in abeyance a large amount of reserve money in the solid waste committee, which means we held $3 million back in the solid waste committee, and that allowed us to use this 10 or 11% in order to offset the total cost of the bins for the municipalities and electoral areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Dobie, go ahead. Go ahead, Counselor Dobie. Oh, you might be frozen.
Yeah, she looks like it.
Yeah. Okay, I think we should proceed. Any other comments from council? No? All right, all in favor? Against, if any? Carried unanimously. Item 2.2 is the Municipal Insurance Association of BC voting delegates. And Ms. McIsaac or Ms. Lucchini, are you speaking about this, or is Ms. McIsaac?
I can speak to it, Your
Okay.
Worship.
Thank you very much.
As prepared by our Deputy Corporate Administrator, Ms. Lucchini, you do have reporting before you with respect to the upcoming Municipal Insurance Association of BC annual AGM. Each year it's held in conjunction with the UBCM's convention. And as part of their annual outreach to the municipalities, they do seek confirmation as to who our voting delegates will be for each year. The UBCM convention will be hosted in person in Whistler this year from September 12th to 16th. And the MIA's AGM is scheduled to take place on Tuesday, September 13th. And with that, the city can designate a voting delegate and up to 2 alternates from those who are planning to attend the UBCM to attend and represent the city at the MIA-BC AGM. At this time, it is understood that Councillor Paul Butler and Mayor Lisa Pazin will be attending the UBCM in concert with our Chief Administrative Officer. So it would be appropriate for council from amongst the members who are planning to attend the UBCM to appoint both a voting delegate and an alternate for the MIA AGM.
Great, Councillor Kashoni, I see your hand up there.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask who was going. I wasn't sure. Now I know. Thank you.
So I'll make a motion for Councillor Butler to be the primary member and myself as alternate. Councillor Jones, are you seconding that? Okay, great, thank you. Any discussion on this matter? No, all in favor? Against, if any? Carried, thank you. Item number 3 is grants in aid and sponsorships. 3.1 is a Kootenay South Métis Society request for rental waiver. This is a $292.60 request. The event is coming up, I believe it is on the 18th, and they're looking for a 50% rental waiver of Gyro Park.
Move approval.
Councillor Kashoni, moved, and is there someone to second this? Counselor Gattafoni Robinson, thank you. Any questions on this matter? None, all in favor? Against, if any? Carried, thank you. Item 3.2 is the Salvation Army request for property tax exemption, and I'm just going to defer to Ms. McIsaac. I had a question on this when I read it, and I sent it to her, and I just would like her to advance this. There's a couple things just as a reminder for staff on this request are around property tax exemption requests. So Ms. McIsaac, if you don't mind, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Payson. So just as I guess a bit of a reminder to council around property tax exemption, which traditionally council has shied away from and opted instead to provide cash grants to various nonprofit organizations. I did want to just remind you, though, that if you do wish to provide a nonprofit organization with property tax exemption, as is being requested here, it would take effect for the next taxation year. So the application that the Salvation Army has put forward relates to or is requesting a property tax exemption of $6,200. This year's property tax billing for the property in question is just over $7,600. So it doesn't look like they have based their application on 2022 rates. But again, if council were to provide property tax exemption, it wouldn't take effect until next year because we would have to bring a bylaw to you prior to October 31st in every fiscal year that we would then share with the BC Assessment Authority. But like I said, council has typically shied away from the permissive tax exemption and has instead provided cash grants to these important organizations providing services. And just as a reminder to council, as we were looking at the grant history for the Salvation Army, with respect to the project that is underway at their Cedar Avenue location, they did seek grant funding from council back in 2020 and had requested a cash grant of $10,000. At the time, council had agreed in principle to that grant, contingent on the Salvation Army securing the other funding contributions that they would require to make the project go forward. And so in our response to the Salvation Army, we had indicated that there was council support for the $10,000 cash grant, conditional on the project proceeding, and asking that the Salvation Army representatives be in touch with the city if the project was going to go forward. So that $10,000 cash grant hasn't been paid out. And because we don't carry forward grant promises from year to year, if council wished to honor that, you would be looking at a cash grant for this year. So what's being suggested for your consideration, and staff don't typically make recommendations around your grant and aid applications, but if you do wish to support the organization, rather than doing so with property tax exemption, that you consider a cash grant to the organization, perhaps up to the $10,000 that you had given favorable consideration to in years past.
Okay, Councillor Kashoni, I see your
I'll
hand
move
up.
the 10,000, and then if someone seconds it, I'll speak to it.
Okay, is there someone to second that motion? Councillor Jones, your microphone's off. Are you seconding that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead,
Well,
Councillor
I remember that clearly. That's what we said, until such time as they did it. Now, I was down there the other day to take a look there, and they're moving quite along on that. So I can't imagine they don't have enough money to finish it. So I think council should be honoring what they said previously. I don't support the $6,200. I would not support the $6,200 for the to defer the taxes. And the reason I wouldn't support the $6,200 to defer the taxes is because that's a secondary building. So they have a building in East Trail, and this would be a building here in West Trail. And in that case there, I couldn't support that. So that would be, for example, is if you had a church and the church had 2 or 3 other buildings and they would be asking for a tax exemption on each one of those. No, I don't think that that's appropriate, but I do think it's appropriate to give them the $10,000 that we promised that we were going to give them back then. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kashoni. Did anyone else want to speak on this matter? Councillor Dobie and then Councillor Jones.
Okay, I just didn't want to speak on it. I lost connection there for a while. And I just want to make sure we're talking about the Salvation Army, correct?
We are. We
Okay,
are.
thank you.
Yeah. And Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Mayor Payson. I just wanted to say, you know, as you read the application that they put forward, it's almost like they're expecting the money this year. I don't believe, it doesn't look like they understand that it's not until next year where they get the tax exemption. So I would suggest that maybe that, you know, goes out into a letter to them explaining when we send them if the $10,000 goes through, just explaining about the tax exemption, that it's not for this year. It will only come into effect next year, because it looks like they want the money for meals and food hampers and et cetera, the work that they do down there. So I'm almost thinking that they are expecting the money this year, and that's why I'm supporting the $10,000 that they didn't get in 2020. Thank you.
Great. Mr. McClure, did you have your hand up there?
Yeah, and I apologize for kind of just out of an educational component. They did talk about the thrift store, because one thing that I think Mayor and Council may be quite aware of is that when you provide a tax exemption, you not only then they are exempt from their municipal taxes, but they become exempt for all of the other taxes, whether it's hospital, regional district, etc. So that is something that has to be taken into consideration. I don't know if the dollar amount that was noted, that what they paid this year, what the value was for the entirety of their taxation, or if it was just the component that related to the municipal portion. So that's one thing that I just have a question about, and I apologize, CEO, WCO McIsaac, for putting you on the spot on that, if you know. But secondly, there's certain things like the assessment would say to you that if they do have the thrift store, and I'm not sure, it sounded like Councillor Ciccone said they have other buildings, but if they have the thrift store there, you actually can't give them a permissive tax exemption that has a business component to it. So if you've got worship services and things like that, they would apportion part of the building for that. But if you've got a thrift store that's a business, and they cannot have a permissive tax exemption for that. And just, I guess, also was feeling like Councillor Jones said, I felt that maybe they just didn't select the correct box maybe when they put this application in. I thought PTE versus a cash one. Anyway, that was all. Apologize. Yeah.
Ms. McIsaac, do you have anything to add on the backside of this one?
I hadn't looked at the detailed breakdown of the property tax account. So thank you for pointing that out. That very well could be where that dollar figure came from. But again, it doesn't sound to me like the appetite for a property tax exemption is there, and recognizing, as Mr. McClure says, that there is the retail component to this new consolidated service center, then the property tax exemption wouldn't be an appropriate mechanism to provide the assistance. So going with the cash grant would seem to be most efficient or effective in this case.
And the Salvation Army has also relocated to the mall under the circumstances of construction downtown. So I'm sure our cash grant would help them with that. The rent that they're paying out there is offsetting their cost while they're going through the expansion. I just want to make sure, did I get everyone's hands who had them up who wanted to make a comment on this matter?
Yeah, good.
Councillor Dobie, do you want to speak again?
Yeah, sorry, because I missed so much. I just want to make sure I understand. All we're voting on right now is the $10,000 cash grant. And if they want a tax exemption for next year, they have to make application again. Am I correct?
Ms. McIsaac?
I would say from the discussion that we've heard that they wouldn't be encouraged to make application for tax exemption. So the cash grant that you're providing is in place of the tax exemption. And we will outline in the letter to them the reasons why they would be ineligible for property tax exemption.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments on this matter? Seeing none, let's go for a vote. All in favor? Against, if any? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And that is it for today. It's 2:50 and we're moving for adjournment. Do I have someone to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Councillor Dobie, thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon, everyone.